My name is Claire Benson. I'm 36 years old. And 4 weeks ago, I wired $8.7 million into a trust account after selling the bakery supply company I built from absolutely nothing. That same evening, on my husband's advice, I sat down and made the hardest phone calls of my life. I called my mom, my dad, and my older brother Derek, and I told them I'd lost the business, that the bank had called the loan, that I was wiped out. What they did in the next 12 hours, not days, 12 hours, confirmed every single thing my husband Kevin had been trying to tell me for 10 years. And what happened 2 weeks later at my parents' 35th wedding anniversary party, right there in front of 60 people at the Harborview Banquet Hall in Savannah, Georgia, is the reason I haven't answered a single call from my mother since. Before I get into this, I want to stop for just a second. If you're already feeling this story in your chest, if something in you is already nodding, hit that subscribe button right now. Not for me. For yourself. So that every time you feel alone in this kind of thing, you come back here and remember, you are not the only one going through it. Drop your city and your local time in the comments too. I read every single one, and I genuinely love knowing where you're all watching from. It means more than you know. Okay. Let me take you back to where this all started. It was a Monday morning in February when I sat in the conference room at Aldridge & Park, a business law firm downtown, and signed my name 17 times. Each signature handed over another piece of what I'd spent 10 years building. Sweetland Supply Company, my bakery supply business serving independent bakeries and small chains across 4 southeastern states. Kevin was sitting right beside me. When the last page was done, he reached under the table and just held my hand. Didn't say a word. Didn't need to. $7 million. 10 years ago, that business was nothing but an idea and a whole lot of nerve. I was 26 years old, sleeping on an air mattress in a 400-square-foot apartment in Savannah, cold-calling bakery owners out of a spiral notebook. My startup money was $22,000, $12,000 from a small business loan with an interest rate that kept me up at night, and $10,000 I'd scraped together waitressing double shifts for 2 straight years. My family thought it was cute. My dad, a retired manager for a grocery chain, used to say, "Claire Bear, you're gonna burn yourself out chasing that little baking dream." He'd say it with that half smile the kind people use when they think they're being kind but they're really just being dismissive. My mom, Sandra, would nod along like he'd just said something really wise. What hurt the most is that nobody said it to be mean. That's the part that took me years to figure out. They weren't bad people on the surface. They were just people who had already decided who I was, the younger one, the one who didn't go to college right away, the one with big ideas who needed to be brought back down to earth, and no amount of success was going to change that story in their heads. Not right away anyway. My brother Derek got the real shot. When Derek was 28, my dad co-signed a $90,000 loan to help him buy into a franchise restaurant group. Nobody called that a little dream. Nobody said Derek was going to burn himself out. That was called an investment in the family's future. I sat at the Thanksgiving table the year that happened and smiled and said congratulations while my dad talked about Derek's business plan like he'd written it himself. Meanwhile, I'd been turned down for a co-signer twice. I got my $12,000 loan alone on my own credit and paid it back every month while building the business at the same time. Derek sold his franchise stake 4 years later when things got hard and blew most of the money on a boat he named after himself and a bathroom renovation he brought up at every single family gathering for 2 years straight. "You should see the tile work," he'd say. Had it imported. I smiled through all of it. Meanwhile, I was getting up before dawn, driving to bakery after bakery, figuring out what small shop owners actually needed in their supply chain, building relationships from nothing. I drove a Corolla with 180,000 miles on it because the work truck needed tires and I couldn't afford both in the same month. I ate a lot of peanut butter sandwiches that first year. I missed holidays because I couldn't afford the gas to drive 4 hours to my parents' house and 4 hours back. Nobody called to say they missed me. My mom called once to tell me that Derek had come home for Easter and it was so nice having the family together. Nobody showed up. Nobody checked in during the hard months. Not once in 10 years did anyone drive to my office or my loading dock or my apartment when I was working through the night just to ask if I needed anything. They showed up later, though. They always show up later. The attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Aldridge, slid the final page across and shook my hand. Ms. Benson, you should be incredibly proud. This is a remarkable outcome. Then she lowered her voice just a little. Be thoughtful about who you tell and when. Kevin nodded like he'd been waiting to hear exactly those words. On the drive home, he turned the radio off. Before you say anything to anyone, he said, I need you to hear me out first. That night, we sat at our kitchen table in Thunderbolt, the little waterfront neighborhood outside Savannah where we'd bought our house 5 years ago. Kevin had a yellow legal pad. The top, he'd written one number, $210,000. That's what you've sent your family over the last 10 years. He slid it across. Cash. Paid bills. Loans they never paid back. I tracked every single one. I stared at the number. Kevin, come on, some of that was real emergencies. He flipped the page. Your mom called crying last March. Said the HVAC needed replacing. $11,000, Claire. 2 weeks later, your parents were posting vacation photos from a cruise to the Bahamas. I opened my mouth. He kept going. $7,000 for Derek's temporary cash flow problem. He bought a new jet ski the very next month. You got a bad sinus infection 2 winters ago and missed a whole week of work. Nobody called. Not one person. But your mom called the day you got back to ask if you could cover Derek's lease payment. Kitchen faucet dripped. The refrigerator hummed. I had nothing to say. If you tell them about this sale, Kevin said, they will treat you like a queen. They'll call every single day. They'll send flowers. And you will never ever know if any of it is real. His voice was calm. Not angry. Just completely honest. Tell them you lost the business. Say the bank called the loan. Tell them there's nothing left. And then wait. See what they do when there's nothing in it for them. I stared at the legal pad. 10 years of line items. Not one entry anywhere that said, called to see how she was doing. They prove me wrong, Kevin said. I'll apologize myself. I'll drive you over there and shake your dad's hand. I want to be wrong, I told him. I know, he said quietly. That's what makes you you. The next morning I picked up my phone to call my mom first. I hadn't called her directly in weeks. It was always her reaching out to me and always when she needed something. That's when I noticed it. I'd been quietly removed from the main family group chat 8 months ago. I didn't even know there was a second one until I saw it buried in my messages, a thread I'd somehow been left on by accident just between my mom and Derek. Derek, just cry on the phone. Works every time. My mom 3 minutes later, I know, baby. I'm thinking we try the roof story again. Maybe wait until after her busy season. She'll have cash. I read it twice. Then a third time. My hands started shaking. This wasn't my mom having a rough day and reaching out to her daughter. This was a system. A planned practice system built around the fact that I could never say no when she cried. I scrolled further. Derek asking which story to use next. My mom timing the asks around my business schedule. My mom coaching Derek on how to word a request so it sounded urgent enough. There was a message from 5 months ago where Derek said to wait until after the holiday shipping season because, and I'm putting this in his own words, that's when she's too tired to think straight. 10 years. $210,000. And they had a whole playbook. I didn't cry. Something in me just settled. Like a drawer that had been jammed open for years and finally slid all the way shut. I want to try and describe what that moment actually felt like because I know some of you know it. It's not rage. It's not even sadness, really. It's more like the end of a long argument you've been having with yourself. The part of you that always said, but they love you, they're your family, they don't mean it that way. That part just goes quiet. And the quiet feels strange at first. almost scary. 'Cause you've been arguing with that voice for so long that when it stops, the silence feels louder than all the noise was. I sat there on the edge of the bed with my phone in my lap, looking at those messages, and I thought about every single time I had given them the benefit of the doubt. Every time I told myself my mom was just stressed. Every time I explained away Derek's behavior as pressure or a rough patch. I had been so generous with every excuse I made for them. So set on seeing the best version of everyone. And they had taken that goodness and built a whole system out of it. They weren't bad at loving me. They were really good at using me. And it took seeing it written in their own words to finally understand that those are two completely different things. I walked downstairs. Kevin was at the counter with his coffee. He took one look at my face and put the mug down. "I'm calling now," I said. He didn't ask what changed. He could see it. I called my mom first. She picked up on the second ring, warm and bright. "Claire, honey, I was just thinking about you." "Mom," I said. My throat felt like sandpaper. "I've got some bad news. The bank called the loan. I had to sell everything off just to cover the debt. I've lost everything." Silence. Not the silence of a mother absorbing the news that her daughter just lost 10 years of her life's work. It was the silence of someone doing quick math. Rearranging their plans. "What does that mean exactly?" She said finally. "Like, how much are we actually talking?" "I have nothing left, Mom. I'm basically starting over from zero." She exhaled. Long, slow. Irritated. The exact sound she used to make when I forgot to refill the ice trays as a kid. "Well, I'm gonna have to talk to your father. We had some things we were planning to ask you about. I'll call you back." She didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't ask where Kevin and I would live. Didn't ask if we'd be all right. She just hung up. Called Derek next. He answered on the fourth ring. "You're joking," he said. "What about, I've got a payment due next month, Claire." "The marina fees." "Derek, I just told you I lost my business. You always do this. You always turn everything into some big dramatic thing." He hung up. I set the phone on the counter. Kevin was at the table. Both hands flat. Just watching me. "Nobody asked if I'm okay," I said. He didn't say anything. The answer was already sitting in the room between us like a piece of heavy furniture. Then my phone buzzed. A notification from that second group chat, the one I was apparently still on by accident. I opened it. My mom typed first, "Claire lost everything. Business gone. I always said that was too risky for her." Derek 2 minutes later, "Honestly, I saw this coming. She always thought she was smarter than everyone else." His wife Tammy, "So what does this mean for the marina thing then?" My dad, Gerald, was at the top of the chat, name grayed out. Present. Silent. Not one word in defense of his daughter. Then my mom again, all caps, "Do not offer her money. She needs to figure this out on her own." I read each message slowly. Kevin had asked me to stay in that chat so I could see it with my own eyes. No second-hand story. No wondering if I'd misread something. Just their words. With their names on them. Written in the minutes after learning I'd lost everything. Derek added one more. Honestly, the writing was on the wall. She never listened to good advice. I thought about the $7,000 I'd wired him for his temporary cash flow problem for months earlier. I took screenshots of all of it. Not because I had a plan yet. Just because I needed proof that this was real. That I hadn't made it up. Kevin came and read it over my shoulder. He put his hand on my back. He didn't say a word. There was nothing left to say. "Hey, real quick, if you're still with me right now, I need you to do something. Hit that like button. Costs you nothing and it tells me you're here. This story is hitting home. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now because the next part of this story is the part nobody expected, and and you don't want to miss it. Okay. Let's keep going. 2 days later, my mom called back. Her voice was careful and measured. The tone she uses when she's about to say something she's already decided you're going to accept. Sweetheart, about the anniversary dinner. Your dad and I have been talking. What about it? We think it might be better if you sat this one out. Given everything you're going through. People will ask questions and I don't want the night to feel heavy. I gripped the edge of the counter. You're uninviting me to your anniversary party. Don't say it like that. She sighed. You're going through something hard. I just think it's better for you right now. We'll do a family lunch the week after. Just us. Just family. The words landed hollow like an empty tin can. I understand, I said. My voice was completely flat. Kevin was in the doorway. He'd heard every word. The phone had been on speaker. He pulled out the little notebook he'd been keeping, dates, conversations, everything, and wrote something down. I hung up and just stood there. For the first time in my life, I did not cry after a phone call with my mother. Tears just weren't there. In their place was something cold and perfectly still, like a lake that freezes solid overnight. I looked at Kevin. I'm going to that dinner, I said. He studied my face for a long moment. Then he nodded. I know, he said. Now here's where things get really interesting, and I want you to stick with me because this next part changed everything. 2 days before the dinner, I got a text from my college friend Renee. We hadn't talked in a couple months, but she lived 2 streets over from Derek and Tammy and knew the same Savannah crowd. Hey, she wrote. This is random. But do you know your brother's been telling people around town that you borrowed money from him and never paid it back? I stared at that message for a full 60 seconds. I had never borrowed one single dollar from Derek in my life. Not ever. I had given him money. Multiple times. But borrowed from him? Never once. I called Renee back. She told me everything. Derek had apparently been going around their whole social circle, the marina crowd, the rec league guys, the neighbors, saying he'd helped Claire out more than once, and that things between them were complicated. He was getting ahead of the story, building his version before I could build mine, making sure that if I ever said anything about the money I'd given him, there would already be a counterstory out there waiting. I sat in my car for 20 minutes just taking that in. And for a moment, just one quick moment, I felt that old pull. That old reflex. The urge to call my mom, explain myself, prove that I hadn't borrowed anything, that I'd done the exact opposite. The urge to smooth it all over before it got worse. 10 years of being the one who explains. The one who fixes it. The one who makes sure everyone understands. I let it go. I was done spending energy defending myself to people who had already picked the story they wanted. I drove home, made a cup of coffee I didn't really want, and started getting ready for a party I hadn't been invited to. I was going anyway. The day before the dinner, I also stumbled onto something I hadn't been looking for at all. I was going through old emails, just routine cleanup, when I found a message my dad had forwarded to my mom about 9 months earlier. No subject line. The original email was from his old friend Ray Kincaid, who worked at the Chatham County Small Business Office. Ray's note said, Jerry, heads up. Heard through the grapevine that Sweetland Supply is on a short list for a buyout by Southeastern Provisions Group. Could be a big payday for Claire. Thought you should know. My dad had forwarded it straight to my mom. No note. No comment. Just passed it along and said nothing to me. 9 months ago, my parents knew that someone was trying to buy my business for a life-changing amount of money. And they said nothing. Kept asking me for money anyway. Kept running the playbook. My mom called me in October, 2 weeks after Ray sent that email, crying about a car repair. I sent her $3,400. I remember feeling bad that I couldn't send more. I sat with that for a long time. The ceiling fan in my home office turned slowly. A fly bumped against the window screen. I thought about every time I'd questioned myself. Every time Kevin had tried gently to show me what was happening and I'd pushed back. I told him he didn't understand my family. He'd been honest the whole time. I'd been choosing comfortable blindness over an uncomfortable truth. They never told me about the buyout interest because the moment I sold and had real money, real options, real security, I might finally start saying no. And they couldn't afford that. Not just money-wise. They had built their whole idea of who they were around being people I needed. That's the part that got me the most. Not the money. The fact that they needed me to struggle. My hardship made them feel like they mattered. My being stuck kept them in a role they weren't willing to give up. I took a screenshot, saved it with everything else, and went upstairs to get dressed. I was going to a party I had not been invited to. I was going anyway. The Harborview Banquet Hall sits right on the Savannah waterfront, little white lights strung along the dock, a private dining room that half the city has used at some point. 60 people filled the space for Sandra and Gerald Benson's 35th wedding anniversary. Kevin wore his dark blue blazer. I wore a simple black dress and the small pearl earrings my grandmother left me. Nothing flashy. Nothing that said a single word. My friend from childhood, May Whitaker, had texted me before we left the house. May was 71 years old, a retired nurse who'd been our next-door neighbor growing up and who now lived about 4 miles from us in Thunderbolt. She was the kind of woman who said exactly what she meant and meant everything she said. "I'll be there," she'd texted. "Table 2 right up front. You won't be alone." Kevin pulled into the parking lot. Through the glass front, I could see my mother working the room in her best dress, laughing with her hand on someone's arm. She looked so happy. Glowing. She looked like a woman celebrating 35 years surrounded by people who truly loved her. Which, for about 1 more hour, was exactly the story she was still living inside. Derek was near the front, standing by a little wooden podium, talking to his wife Tammy with that easy, confident way he always had in rooms where he thought he was in control. Kevin turned off the engine. "Whatever happens in there," he said, "I'm right next to you the whole time." I opened the door. The Savannah air was warm and thick, the way it gets in late spring even at night. We walked in. My mother spotted me the second we came through the door. Her smile froze for half a second, just half, before she pulled it back together into something that looked like warmth. "Claire, you came. I'm so glad." She hugged me. Her hands were stiff on my back. A performance. Practiced. But still a performance. "Hi, Mom." Kevin and I found a table near the windows that looked out over the water. May was 2 tables over, right up front, with 2 women from her old nursing days, Barbara Tillman and Dot Reeves, both retired, both sharp as anything, both with the steady confidence that comes from women who have seen a lot of life and stopped pretending not to notice things. May caught my eye. One small nod. "I'm here." The room buzzed around me. People I'd known my whole life. People who had heard I went broke because my mom had told them. People who were giving me that soft, tilted head look, the one that means I heard about you and I feel a little sorry for you but not enough to get involved. Then Derek stepped up to the microphone. He tapped it twice. The room went quiet. He made a couple jokes that landed because Derek always lands his jokes. Then my mom took the mic. 35 years, she said, and the room clapped. She talked about how lucky she and Gerald had been. Their home. Their friends. Their family. She turned to Derek first. "Our Derek," she said, "who has always been our rock. Dependable, successful, a wonderful husband and father. We are so incredibly proud." Derek smiled big. Tammy squeezed his arm. Then my mom glanced over in my direction. Almost like an afterthought. "And our Claire, who has always worked so hard. Always so dedicated." That was it. That was my whole mention. Not a word about the 10 years I'd spent building a business that employed over 30 people at its peak. Not a word about the awards, the contracts, the distribution network I'd built from a spiral notebook and a prayer. Nothing. Worked so hard. You'd say that about a reliable old dog. Kevin's hand found mine under the tablecloth. Family means we stand together, my mom said, raising her glass. No matter what. The room raised their glasses. I lifted my water and smiled. May did not lift hers. She was watching my mother with an expression I recognized from when we were kids, the look May gets when she hears someone lie out loud and confidently. Then Derek stepped back to the mic. He had an announcement. He and Tammy, he said, had just put a deposit on a house in Whitfield Park Estates, the nicest new gated neighborhood in the county. Custom builds. Kind of place where the landscaping looks like it has its own landscaping crew. The room lit up. My mom covered her mouth with both hands. Oh, Derek. I am so proud of you. I watched from my table. Derek and Tammy did not have money for Whitfield Park Estates. Derek managed a chain of dry cleaning locations. They'd been leasing their car for 3 years. 5 months ago, Derek had called me saying he was tight and needed help with a marina fee. And now he was putting a deposit on a house that started at $850,000. Then, and this is the moment I will remember for the rest of my life, Derek turned and looked straight at me in front of the whole room. He put his hand on his heart. Claire, he said, I know things are really tough for you right now. And I just want you to know, when Tammy and I move, we'd love for you and Kevin to rent our old place. Family rate. The room melted. Hands went to hearts. Someone at the back actually teared up. I sat completely still. This was why I had been reinvited. Not because he felt bad. Not out of love. Not to make things right. I was the prop. The struggling little sister standing in the background, making his big moment look even bigger. The failure that made his success shine. He needed me in that room so the whole thing would land harder. I smiled. Thank you, Derek. The words tasted like chalk. Kevin leaned close to my ear. Now you know, he murmured. Now I know. 15 minutes later, as the room broke into small conversations and somebody turned up the background music, Derek's wife Tammy appeared at our table. She sat down and slid a folded document across the tablecloth the same casual way you'd hand someone a napkin. Just a form, she said. We need a co-signer to qualify for the Whitfield Park mortgage. Nothing big. Just your signature. I unfolded it. It was from First Coastal Lending. Co-signer form. Derek and Tammy ever stopped paying, I would be on the hook. My name. My credit. My money. My mom had already signed at the bottom. Gerald too. They needed you here tonight, Kevin said quietly, because their bank needs your name on this paper. I looked up at Tammy. She smiled. It's just a formality. You'd be helping family. I stood up. The room began to go quiet, one table at a time, the way a room does when people sense something is about to happen. I'm not signing this. Tammy's smile held for 3 seconds before it dropped. What? Why not? 'Cause co-signing a mortgage is not a formality, Tammy. It's a real financial promise. And the fact that you're sliding this across a dinner table tells me everything I need to know about how this would all go. Derek crossed the room in 5 big steps. What is your problem? My problem, Derek, is that you're buying a house you can't afford and you need my name on it to make the numbers work. My mom pushed through from the buffet table. Claire. Don't do this here. You're upsetting everyone. My voice stayed level. Mom, last week you told me not to come tonight. You said my being here would bring down the mood. I made sure the tables around us could hear every word. Now I'm here because Derek needs a signature on a loan. So which is it? Am I family or am I a resource? The room went dead silent. Derek's jaw tightened. You are so selfish. You've always been so selfish. May's voice came from table 2. Clear and unhurried, the way only someone who spent decades in hospital rooms can speak without raising their voice. Derek, you just told 60 people that your sister is welcome to rent your house, and in that same breath you're asking her to co-sign your mortgage. Which one of those conversations do you think is the honest one? Derek opened his mouth. Nothing came out. My dad stood up. Gerald Benson, 62 years old. A man who had spent his whole life taking the path of least friction. Claire, he said, his voice cracking just a little. Don't make your mother upset. I looked at him. Every time you say that, Dad, you're asking me to shrink myself down so you don't have to deal with the mess. And I have been doing that my whole life. And then Derek, and I think this is the moment the whole room turned, said something he could not take back. You know what your problem is? He pointed right at me. You always acted like you were something special because of that little business. And now it's gone. So what exactly do you have to be so proud of? The silence that followed was total. May set her wine glass down on the table. Barely made a sound. But in that room it sounded like a gavel. She stood up slowly. I've known this family for over 30 years, she said. And Derek, you just told everyone in this room that your sister only had worth when she had something you could take from her. Do you hear yourself? Tammy grabbed Derek's arm. He pulled away. My mom stepped forward, chin up. This is your fault, Claire. You come in here and humiliate everyone. She didn't say a single word, Sandra. May's voice was calm and final. Your son said it all on his own. And now I need to stop right here and talk to you directly. If you've ever been the one in your family that people only call when they need something, if you've ever sat at a table full of people and felt completely alone, I need you to know something right now. You are not crazy. You are not dramatic. You are not the problem. Hit that subscribe button right now if you believe that. And keep watching, because what happens next is why I made this video in the first place. I reached into my purse. I want to say something to everyone here. My voice was steady. Steadier than I ever expected. I'm not broke. I didn't lose Sweetland Supply Company. The room held its breath. I sold it 4 weeks ago to Southeastern Provisions Group. $7 million. Papers were signed at Aldridge and Park right here in Savannah. Kevin can confirm every word of it. My mom's face went white. Not red. White. Like the blood had decided to leave all at once. I pulled out my phone and held up the screenshots from the group chat. Tables closest to me could read the screen clearly. In the 24 hours after I told you I'd lost everything, here is exactly what happened. Mom, you uninvited me from this party. You said my situation would ruin the mood. I kept my voice calm and clear. Derek, you blocked my number. Then unblocked it the second you needed a co-signer. And Dad, you didn't say one single word in my defense. Not one. I looked at my mom. And in the family group chat, the one I was still on by accident, you wrote in all caps, "Do not offer her money. She needs to figure this out on her own." That was 30 minutes after you heard your daughter had lost her life's work. May held my mother's gaze. My mother looked at the floor. There's one more thing. I pulled up the forwarded email and held the screen toward my dad. 9 months ago, your friend Ray Kincaid emailed you to say that someone big was looking to buy my company. You forwarded that email straight to Mom. No note. No call to me. Nothing. My dad stood with his hands at his sides. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. He knew exactly what I was talking about. You kept asking me for money for 9 more months after that, I said. 'Cause if I sold and actually became financially free, I might finally start saying no. And you couldn't let that happen. A wave of sound moved through the room. Not quite a gasp. More like 60 people quietly rearranging everything they thought they knew. My mom gathered herself. Sweetheart, we were protecting you from making a rushed decision. That's what parents do. May's voice carried across the room without any effort. Sandra, everyone in this town has watched you borrow from your daughter for a decade. Don't stand here and call that protection. A murmur rolled through the room like a current. Tammy was already heading for the door. Derek sank into the nearest empty chair. My dad stayed standing but said nothing. I put my phone back in my purse. Didn't make a show of it. Just put it away like I was tucking away a grocery receipt. I didn't come here for revenge, I said. I came because I wanted to believe this family was what it said it was on the Christmas cards. I wanted to be wrong about all of it. I really did. I looked at my mom, Derek, and my dad. But there is a condition on love in this family that I never agreed to. I have to be useful. I have to write the checks. I have to stay small so nobody feels outdone. And the second I have nothing left to give, I get left off the guest list. I stood up straight. Starting tonight, that's over. Not out of anger. 'Cause I finally understand something I should have understood years ago. You cannot buy love from people who are only renting it to you. I looked over at May. Thank you for always being real with me. May's eyes were bright. She pressed her lips together and gave me one steady nod. Kevin stood up and buttoned his jacket. He placed his hand on the small of my back. We walked to the door together. 60 people watched us go. Nobody called my name. Nobody followed us out. Outside, the Savannah night was warm and soft. Spanish moss moved slowly in a breeze coming off the river. Kevin opened my door and I got in. You okay? He said. I leaned my head back against the seat. The thing that had been coiled up in my chest for 10 years, maybe my whole life, loosened. Not completely, but enough to breathe. Yeah, I said. For the first time in a really long time, yeah. The apologies came fast. My mom texted first, 48 hours later. Honey, I was in shock. I reacted badly. I love you more than anything. Can we please just sit down and talk? Derek sent an actual voice message. He sent a voice message, saying he was sorry that he'd been under a lot of pressure, that he hoped we could move past it. My dad called and left a voicemail. He used the word sorry 4 times. He said he was proud of me twice. In my 36 years on this earth, he had used neither of those words with me. Not once. I sat at my kitchen table reading and listening to all of it, letting my coffee go cold. Kevin was across from me, going through some paperwork. When you had nothing, he said quietly, they were gone within 12 hours. Now that they know you have $8.7 million, they're back in 48. Same people. Same speed. Just a different direction now. I opened the family group chat and typed one message. I need some space. Please give me time. Then I muted it and set the phone face down on the table. Kevin looked up. What do you need? Nothing, I said. And I think that's exactly the point. Without my signature, First Coastal Lending turned down Derek and Tammy's mortgage application within 10 days. The $55,000 deposit they'd put down on the Whitfield Park lot, money I later found out Derek had pulled from a home equity line that Tammy didn't even know existed, was gone. Non-refundable. Tammy found out about that hidden credit draw the same week the rejection letter came. She moved into the guest room. Their boys noticed something was wrong. The oldest, Marcus, who was 14 and had always been a genuinely sweet kid, got quiet at school. May heard about it through people in the neighborhood. That part bothered me. Kids don't deserve to carry grown-up messes. It wasn't fair to Marcus. My mom tried to keep the old story going. Claire has all that money and won't help her family, but the ground had completely shifted. Too many people had been in that room at the Harborview. Too many people had watched May stand up. Too many people had heard Derek say out loud that I only mattered when I had something to offer. The true version spread the way truth usually does in a small city. Church parking lots, coffee shop tables, the quiet conversations people have when they think they're just catching up. May's friend Dot, who served on a church committee with some of my mom's closest friends, mentioned something to the pastor's wife about what real family support actually looks like. Nobody used names. They didn't need to. 3 weeks after the dinner, there was a knock at my front door on a Thursday morning. I opened it to find my dad standing on the porch. He'd walked. Gerald Benson, 62 years old, retired, had walked 4.5 miles from my parents' house to mine in the Georgia heat, canvas fishing hat, old sneakers, face red from the sun. He looked 10 years older than he had at the party. "I'm not here for money," he said before I could open my mouth. "And I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here because I owe you something that isn't money." I opened the door wider. Kevin poured him a glass of water, set it on the table, and walked out to the backyard without a word. That's Kevin. He knew without being told that this moment was between my dad and me and nobody else. My dad sat down. He held the glass with both hands and looked at it for a long time. Gerald Benson has always been a man who talks through doing things, fixing the leaky faucet, bringing a bag of pecans from his yard, showing up with tools when something breaks. Actual words, real ones, have always cost him something. I sat across from him and watched him paying the price. "I knew what your mother was doing," he said finally. His voice was quieter than I expected. "I knew what Derek was doing too. I heard the calls. I watched the pattern. And I never said one word. Not to you. Not to them." He stopped. I was scared. Scared of the fights. Scared of the cold shoulder. Scared of everything I'd spent so many years holding together just coming apart. "It already came apart, Dad," I said. "A long time ago. You just chose not to look at it." He nodded slowly. He turned the glass in his hands. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, quick, embarrassed, like he was trying to get it done before I noticed. "I gave you the harder road on purpose," he said. "Not because I loved you any less than Derek. I need you to know that. I gave it to you because I thought you were the one who could actually do something with nothing. The one who had it in her." He looked up at me. "And you were. You absolutely were. And I was too small and too scared to stand up and say so when it would have meant something." I thought about the 26-year-old who'd cold-called bakery owners out of a spiral notebook. The one who'd eaten peanut butter sandwiches and missed holidays and driven a beat-up car with 180,000 miles on it. The one who'd driven 4 hours to dinner tables hoping this time, just this time, someone would ask about the business the way you ask about something you're actually proud of. "I love you, Dad." That's never been the question. But the version of us where I keep giving and nobody checks on me, that version is done. I need you to really understand that. He nodded. He finished his water. He set the glass in the sink, not on the counter, in the sink, because even in hard moments my dad has manners, and he walked back out into the Georgia heat without another word. I watched him go through the kitchen window. He walked slowly, the way he has since his knee surgery. He didn't look back. Kevin came in from the backyard and stood beside me. "You okay?" I thought about it for a real second. "Yeah," I said. "I really am." Kevin and I drove to see an estate attorney in Beaufort, a woman named Constance Gibbs, gray hair, no-nonsense energy, the kind of attorney who gets right to the point. We set up a locked trust fund. The full $8.7 million went in. Kevin and I are the only ones who can access it. Nobody else can make any claims against it. Clean. Final. Done. Constance sent formal letters to my mom, my dad, and Derek. Simple, professional wording. All future requests for money from these individuals will not be considered. This is not a punishment. It is a boundary. My mom called Constance's office the same day the letter arrived. Was told there was nothing to discuss. Called again. Same answer. The third time, the woman who answered said, "Mrs. Benson, there's nothing further I can share with you," and ended the call. Derek texted me a 4-paragraph message that night. Swung back and forth between apologizing and blaming me like a car swerving in traffic. I was wrong, showed up twice. So did you've destroyed this family. It ended with, "I hope you can live with yourself." I read it once. Set the phone down. Didn't reply. Kevin found me on the porch swing watching the boats move on the river. Derek says I destroyed the family, I said. He sat down next to me. You didn't destroy anything. You just stopped rebuilding what they kept tearing down. We sat there until the stars came out. For the first time in weeks, I slept all the way through the night. About a month after the dinner, I got an envelope in the mail. Hand-addressed, careful block letters, the kind a teenager uses when they're trying to make it look neat. No return address, but I recognized the stationery right away. Pale blue with a small sailboat in the corner. I'd bought it for Marcus 2 summers ago when we went school shopping together. He'd picked it out himself, said he wanted to write actual letters someday. I told him that was the coolest thing I'd heard all week. I opened it at the kitchen table while Kevin was in the next room. Dear Aunt Claire, it started. I don't totally understand everything that happened between you and my dad. They don't really explain it to me. I think that's because they don't want me picking sides. I'm not picking sides. I just wanted you to know that I miss you. You always made me feel like I could actually do something big someday. My dad doesn't really say stuff like that. You do. I'm sorry for whatever happened. Whatever it was, I know it's not your fault. I love you. Love, Marcus. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it along the original crease and pressed it flat against my chest, and I cried. Not the worn-out, empty kind of crying I'd been doing for weeks. This was different. This was the kind of crying that cleans you out. Kind that comes when somebody sees you clearly, with no angle, no need, nothing to gain, and says so in their own handwriting on pale blue paper with a little sailboat on it. A 14-year-old boy had shown more real grace in 8 sentences than the adults in my family had shown in 10 years. I wrote him back that afternoon. I told him I loved him and always would. I told him none of what happened was about him, not one bit of it. I told him he was going to do great things, and that when the time came, I would be there for him no matter what. Then I called Constance Gibbs and set up a separate locked education fund. $40,000 only accessible for tuition and school costs. Marcus's name on it. Derek's name nowhere near it. Kevin reviewed the paperwork that evening and signed it without a moment's pause. He's a genuinely good kid, Kevin said quietly. The best one in the bunch by a mile, I said. That was the last thing either of us said about it that night. Some things don't need a follow-up. In the weeks after the dinner, something I didn't expect happened. Word got out. Savannah isn't a huge city, and the Harborview Banquet Hall is exactly the kind of place where 60 people in the room means 600 people know what happened by the end of the week. The story moved the way stories always move in a place like this: church parking lots, coffee shop counters, the Tuesday morning crowd on Bull Street. But the calls I got weren't the ones I expected. I figured people would feel awkward. I thought some might take my mom's side or just stay quiet because nobody wants to get in the middle of a family situation. Instead, I got a voicemail from a woman named Helen Poole who I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. Helen had been a vendor contact in my early days at Sweetland Supply. She said she'd heard what happened from a mutual friend and just wanted me to know that she'd watched me build that business from nothing and that she was proud of me. That was it. No drama. No gossip. Just a woman picking up the phone to say she was proud. I listened to that voicemail in my car in the grocery store parking lot, and I cried harder than I had all month. May told me later that the Sunday after the dinner, the pastor at her church gave a whole sermon about the difference between family duty and real family love. About how love that comes with a price tag isn't really love. He didn't name anyone. Didn't need to. But my mom walked out before the final song, and she hadn't missed a single Sunday service in 30 years. The grocery store on Wednesday, the checkout lady Darlene, who'd known my mom for years, just squeezed my hand when I came through her lane. No words. Just a squeeze and a nod and my receipt. Sometimes a squeeze from a near stranger means more than a whole paragraph from someone who's supposed to love you. 5 months later, Kevin and I closed on a small property in the Starland district of Savannah. I'm not rebuilding Sweetland Supply. That chapter closed the right way on my terms and I'm at peace with it. What I'm building now is smaller and quieter and completely mine. A food consulting business, helping independent bakery and cafe owners with sourcing and operations. No huge supply chain. No corporate buyers watching my quarterly numbers. Just good work done well for people who actually appreciate it. May comes over every other Sunday with something from her garden. We sit on the back porch and drink sweet tea and talk about things that actually matter. Sometimes she brings her friend Constance, not the attorney, a different one, who runs a community garden in another part of the city, and we sit 3 in a row watching the river move. I found a support group. Women who know exactly what it means to be the family ATM. We meet every other Tuesday in the fellowship hall of a church in Midtown. Nobody uses last names. Coffee is terrible and strong and I wouldn't trade it. It is the safest room I have ever sat in. My mom texts on holidays. Always the same, something warm on the outside with a sharp little edge underneath it. Praying for you every day, sweetheart. I don't write back. My dad sends cards. Christmas. My birthday. 3 sentences, handwritten, no ask at the end. Just, happy birthday, Claire. I think about you. Dad. I keep them. I've got 2 now, pinned to the board above my desk. The line holds. Quiet stays. I used to think quiet meant something was wrong. Like I hadn't done enough. Like I'd failed at being part of a family somehow. Now I understand. Quiet is what it sounds like when your life finally belongs to you. I want to look you in the eye right now before I finish this. For 10 years I told myself I wasn't doing enough. Wasn't giving enough. Wasn't showing up the right way. Every time my mom cried on the phone, I thought it meant I had failed her somehow. Every time Derek made a sharp remark about my choices, I stored it away and told myself that's just how family works. They push you because they're close to you. They ask a lot because they love you. And because you love them back, you find a way to give, even when it costs you more than it should. Here's what nobody ever told me straight. There is a big difference between giving and being taken from. Giving is free. Comes from love. Being taken from is when someone has figured out exactly which buttons to push to get what they want, and they push them every single time on purpose. I had been calling being taken from the same thing as giving for 10 years. I had made it part of who I was. The reliable one. The generous one. The one who always comes through. Kevin saw the truth. Kevin saw a woman who worked herself to the bone building something real, and then handed pieces of it away year after year to people who, in 10 years of doing that, never once called just to ask how she was doing. Not once showed up with nothing to gain. Not once said, "Hey, you've been carrying a lot, are you okay?" He didn't say that to hurt me. He said it because he loved me enough to tell the truth when everyone else around me had a reason to keep me from knowing it. You are the one your family calls when they need something and forgets when you need anything. Hear me when I say this. You are not crazy. You are not being dramatic. You are not failing at love. You are loving people who have decided that your love is a supply line, not a real relationship. That is their failure. Their choice. Not your flaw. Setting a limit doesn't mean you stopped loving them. It means you finally started loving yourself too. You are allowed to do that. You were always allowed to do that. I'm just saying it out loud because somebody needs to. People in your life treat you like an ATM with feelings. You are allowed to change that. Not out of revenge. Not out of spite, though the hurt is real and you don't have to pretend it isn't. But because you deserve a life that actually belongs to you. A life where you look at your phone without dreading what you'll see. A life where the quiet feels peaceful instead of dangerous. I made that choice. Cost me real things. My mom's approval, which I had been chasing my whole life without ever quite catching it. My brother's presence, which had mostly been him taking up space and drawing down my resources. A version of my dad I had always hoped would show up but never quite did. What it gave me was everything else. I would make this same choice tomorrow. I'd make it 100 times. Early morning now. Kevin's coffee is already on the counter. The Savannah light comes through the kitchen window sideways, the way it does in summer, golden and thick and unhurried. My phone buzzes on the table. Text from Marcus. Aunt Claire. I got into the engineering summer program at Georgia Tech full scholarship. I mean it, thank you. Thank you so much. I stand at that kitchen window holding my phone and I smile. A real one. Kind that starts deep in your chest and just spreads before you even notice it happening. Kevin reads it over my shoulder. He doesn't say a word. He just puts his arm around me. I look out at the small garden we planted along the back fence. Tomatoes. Herbs. A Meyer lemon tree that's finally really starting to grow. Nothing worth millions. Just ours. Every single inch of it. Not because someone handed it to us. Not because we got lucky. 'Cause we chose it. 'Cause we built it. 'Cause we walked away from the people who kept taking and we walked straight toward the life we actually wanted to keep. My name is Claire Benson. I'm 36 years old. And for the first time in my life, I don't owe a single person an explanation, an apology, or a check. The coffee's hot. The morning is mine. That's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. Now before you go, I need one thing from you. If this story felt like yours in any way at all, if you have ever been the family ATM, the one people call when they need something and forget when you need anything, drop a comment right now and tell me, what is one boundary you have set or one you are still working up the nerve to set? I read every single comment. Every one. I will reply to as many as I can. And if you got something out of this story, if it helped you even a little bit, please share it. Send it to the one friend or family member who needs to hear this. Share it to your stories. Text it to someone. 'Cause somewhere right now there is a person sitting at a kitchen table with a phone full of messages from people who only reach out when they need something, wondering if they are the crazy one. They are not crazy. And this video might be exactly what they need to hear. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. New stories go up every week, real ones about real people choosing themselves. You don't want to miss what's coming next. And remember this, you are not an ATM. You are not a backup plan. You are not a resource to be used up. You are somebody's equal. Start acting like it. And surround yourself with people who already know that. I'll see you in the next one.